One of the coolest things about gratitude, honestly, is it's such a powerful practice. It's so incredible because literally what you're doing in the moment, you're totally acknowledging the divine that's happening in front of you right then, right there. And it's these little things that as you continue to use the practice of gratitude will grow stronger and stronger and stronger within you, and you'll start to understand, you'll start to have more things to be grateful for. How many people want more things to be grateful for? I do. And that's why it's one of the primary things that the Fillmores talked about. And that's why the name of this talk this morning is going to be The Gratitude is the Language of God, in my opinion. It's a thing that makes us realize that we're surrounded 24/7 with this energy, this power of the divine that's working around us. And yet, so often, we are so busy in our own worlds and our own lives, like I mentioned in the opening, that we just don't take the time to see it and to experience it. That gratitude isn't just a spiritual accessory, a spiritual tool. I actually consider gratitude to be like a tuning fork. So to me, it's like the perfect thing, just like for anybody that plays an instrument, sometimes you got to do what? You got to tune the instruments, right? Because sometimes the instruments get out of tune. Well, guess what? So do we vibrationally. And the way that we get to tune ourselves back in, one of the best tools that you can use is gratitude. Use gratitude as your tuning fork to put yourself back into full alignment, back into the frequency of the divine or God. And when you settle into this idea of genuine gratitude, you're basically speaking in God's native tongue. That's what you're doing. And what may be some other reasons for us to consider gratitude as one of our primary spiritual tools, it is, to me, the ultimate tool. And that's why I love this time of year, and that's why I love this time to celebrate and to actually get together with family and to be with our friends and to be with people and to share a meal and to break bread and to do all the things that we do at this time of year. And so why? Well, let's just talk about it for a minute. I have some ideas, but I'm really curious to hear yours as well. But for me, first of all, it lifts consciousness. Again, this is a tuning fork idea or thought. Gratitude raises your vibrational field. It literally changes who you are being in the moment that you're being it. It raises you up, and you can actually perceive divine possibility instead of the usual clutter. So it literally starts to silence, and all of a sudden, you start to tune into something that's a little bit beyond yourself in some ways. And how can it do that? Well, because it opens you up to flow. Well, wait a minute, Mike. How does it do that? Well, it's simple. I just want you to imagine you're hanging out in life and you're kind of looking like this. Ever been there? You're holding on so desperately for something. You're clenched up. You just can't. And when you're like that, just understand that you're not letting anything in. So it isn't like God isn't trying to help, the divine isn't trying to support you, but when you're sitting there all bundled up like that, it's really, really hard, I would say in some cases impossible, to let the divine in. And gratitude will actually loosen the grip that fear and doubt has on you. It will. It dissolves lack thinking. Did you know that you literally can't mentally occupy appreciation and scarcity at the same time? It's literally impossible to do it. You cannot do it. You can do one or the other. You can't do both at the same time. So just remember that. That's something that cannot energetically happen within your system. It's impossible. You would probably short circuit and blow yourself up if you tried to do it. So don't do it. I'm just saying, though, the reality of it is that is not going to happen. You can't do it. The other thing it does is it creates spiritual momentum because what you appreciate expands beyond consciousness. It expands around what it notices. So the more that you get into this practice, the more that you appreciate, the more all of a sudden you're having things to be grateful for. And then all of a sudden you just kind of catch this wheel and you start going and you start building this momentum and you start building this steam. The other thing it does is it reveals presence. You start seeing evidence of God in places you didn't even realize was there. And I think that's probably one of the coolest gifts that I can share with you in terms of practicing the presence, is that in the past, there were so many times when it was right there, the whole entire time. And I just had no ability to be able to see it. And yet, the more I practice it, the more I see it, the more I see it, the more I realized how much I didn't see it. Kind of a funny thing, but it's kind of like the way that it's worked out. How about you? Why? Why practice gratitude? What did I miss? Anybody? Thoughts? Ideas? Ron. Beautiful. It reminds of, say it again, I didn't hear the first part, of all who love us. Yes. Got it. Jamie. It feels better in your body. Amen. Yeah, it feels better in your body, for sure. Charles. It allows us to expand beyond what is possible. Beautiful. What we thought was possible. Thank you. Correct. Yes, Dave. It opens our heart and expands our mind. And it tickles. Yeah. Anybody ever get a good giggle when they have a nice gratitude buzz going on? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Anybody else? We good? All really, really beautiful. Speaking of presents, I want to just share with you this little story. Long ago on the coast of an ancient kingdom, there was a quiet temple by the sea. And the temple was known not for its size, but for the gentle monks who lived within. They were devoted to silence, humility, and gratitude. Among them was a young monk named Dev. He had come to the temple as a child, seeking peace after losing his family in a great storm. Though the monks gave him shelter, food, and love, Dev carried a deep sorrow in his heart. Years passed. Dev grew into a wise young man. However, he grew into a wise young man, but he struggled with one question: why should I be grateful when life has taken so much? Sensing his inner conflict, the head monk one day handed Dev a smooth, spiraled seashell. It shimmered with soft colors and felt warm in his hand. Take this shell, the monk said, and walk along the shore every day. Speak to it only when you feel grateful. When the shell is full, bring it back to me. Dev was puzzled. How can a shell be full of gratitude? The monk only smiled, of course. Each day, Dev walked the shoreline with his shell in hand. And at first, he had nothing to say. The waves came and the waves went. But his heart felt silent. And then, one morning, he saw a crab struggling to turn over in the sand. He helped it gently back to the sea. And as it disappeared into the water, he whispered to the shell, "Thank you for letting me help you." The next day, he noticed the scent of the salt in the wind, and he whispered, "Thank you for this breath." And soon it became easier. He thanked the warmth of the sun. He thanked the strength in his legs. He thanked the memory of his mother's lullaby. He even thanked the sorrow for it had brought him to this path. Days turned into weeks. Dev began to smile again. His heart, once heavy, grew lighter with every whisper into the shell. Finally, one evening at sunset, he returned to the temple and handed the shell back to the head monk. The old monk held it to his ear as if listening. Then he nodded, "Yes, it's full." Dev was stunned. "You can hear it?" And the monk smiled gently. When we speak with true gratitude, the world listens, not with ears, but with grace. You are not filling the shell, Dev. You are filling your soul. And so Dev learned what the shell had truly taught him. That gratitude is not about what we have or what we've lost. It's about noticing the small gifts that we often overlook. A breath, a breeze, a moment of kindness, the strength to keep walking even when the path is quiet. So now, hold on to your own seashell. Try and say that one 3 times fast, right? Whether real or imagined, and ask yourself the simple question: what can you be thankful for this moment? As you remember that. Fillmore's obviously taught about gratitude all the time. Charles said gratitude is a great mind magnet, and when it is expressed from the spiritual standpoint, it is powerfully augmented. Why? Because you become a magnet when you become grateful. That's why. Myrtle says, begin now to bless everything, and blessing will multiply and return to you. So obviously the Fillmores were huge, huge proponents of using gratitude for blessings, right? So there is a story in the Bible I want to share with you, which is always fun. And this one starts off, this is in the book of Luke, and it starts off and it says, as they continued onward toward Jerusalem, they reached the border between Galilee and Samaria. And as they entered a village there, 10 lepers stood at a distance crying out, Jesus, sir, have mercy on us. And Jesus looked at them and he said, go to the Jewish priests and show them that you are healed. And as they were going, their leprosy disappeared. One of them came back to Jesus shouting, glory to God, I'm healed. He fell flat on the ground in front of Jesus, face downward in the dust, thanking him for what he had done. The man was a despised Samaritan. Jesus asked, did I heal 10 men? In question. And then he asked, where are the other 9? Does only this foreigner return to give glory to God? And Jesus said to the man, stand up and go. Your faith has made you well. So, as you know, what do we do here at Unity? We don't just read the Bible literally. We also do it how? Metaphysically. So, of course, we got to look at this metaphysically. What's really going on behind the scenes? So let's talk about that, right? So you have the 10 lepers. The 10 lepers represent the fragmented and exiled part of your consciousness. It's the places you've judged, you don't want to acknowledge, you ignore, you deny, you want to get rid of. It's a part of you where you're like, get out of here. I'm not going to tell anybody about this. I don't want anybody to know about this part of me. You know what I'm talking about? Do we all have one or two of those parts? Maybe more in some cases, right? So then we have Jesus. We all by now should know that Jesus symbolizes the inner Christ awareness. And what does that awareness say? Walk towards the truth even before you see the evidence. So it's saying head to the Pharisees, go there, or the priests, go to the priests even before you see the evidence of your healing. Start walking that way. Don't worry, it'll happen. You just got to start moving that way. I got to get you moving towards that direction before you see the healing. Start walking that way, right? And then we have the instruction, go and show yourselves to the priest. That represents the inner movement, what's happening to you inside, the internal experience that you're having. And you're moving from this idea of complaining, oh, this again, and all the stuff that this judgment and the shame and the blame and the guilt and everything we do to ourselves, and you're actually switching to paying attention to spiritual law or moving towards truth. And when we do that, then all of a sudden we become aware of new things. We have new awarenesses, so new awarenesses will lead to our healing. And then all of a sudden, once that happens, then what happens? The evidence starts to appear. And that's where the leprosy disappeared, right? The healing as they went is a spiritual law of unfolding. It's a transformation that happens through the movement in faith, not sitting around hoping for a sign. So there was actually action that needed to be taken in order for the healing to take place. They couldn't just sit there. They actually had to do something. And this was part of what they needed to do, right? And this is probably one of the coolest parts of the whole thing. The one who returns, because remember, 10 of them went there to get healed. How many of them returned and said thanks? 1. And who was he? He was a Samaritan. Now you got to remember, back in those days, they were not looked upon very fondly. They were not at all. But in unity, what that symbolizes, again, it's the outside part of you, the unpolished, that part of you that you just do not want to acknowledge in any way, shape, or form, the part of you that you've dismissed, the human part of you. And that's what that represents. But here's the thing that's really interesting about it is often that's the part of you that really kind of gets this idea of humbly just surrendering to the divine. It will literally do that. That's the part. It recognizes it first. The other 9 represented the part of the knowledge. It's the knowledge. And so they were just going on their way. They're like, hey, thanks. They didn't even say thanks. They just went on and they were healed. But it was the actual part that didn't hesitate to go back in and thank Jesus for what Jesus had done. Right? They got the outer healing. That did happen. But what they did is they missed the most important part. They missed the inner transformation. And that is what gratitude does. The Samaritan, the outsider, is the one that returns. He was the one that bowed. He was the one that gave thanks. He was the one that sees the divine. And so gratitude, what this lesson teaches us, is that gratitude rises from the part that is suffered, from the part that is softened, and then finally opens, is where the gratitude can come from. And this is why Jesus says at the very end of that parable that your faith has made you whole, because Jesus realized the Samaritan was healed not only on the outside, but also on the inside. And that was the difference, because the Samaritan's gratitude completed the inner healing that had begun. Isn't metaphysical interpretation cool? I just love it. I just think it's so much fun. It takes a story and makes it into something like that. Because in this case, obviously the healing removed the condition, but gratitude restored the consciousness. And ultimately, underneath all of it, isn't it a returning to the consciousness that'll heal us? Isn't that what we want? That's what we're looking for? Yeah. So a couple of just quick takeaways from the story. The place within you that feels least spiritual may be, just maybe, the most receptive to the opening. And gratitude can create that opening or awaken the heart. Your breakthrough in most cases is not going to come from here. How many people know that? And yet, how many people have been trying to figure it out with this all along? Yeah. Your breakthrough is going to come from right here. And in order for that to happen, you're going to need to get this out of the way and come right back into here and surrender and let it go and invite Spirit in.